Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. When I say the title, The Great Gatsby, what's the absolute first image that hits your brain?
Oh, the party.
It's the party, isn't it? Be honest.
It has to be. The fireworks, the music.
The flapper dresses, yeah, the jazz blasting. Maybe it's Leonardo DiCaprio holding up that champagne glass with that little smirk on his face.
It's the ultimate vibe check of the Roaring '20s.
Exactly. It is the symbol of excess. It's the American dream on steroids. We think of it as this, celebration of wealth and making it. But today, we're going to completely flip that script. We're looking at a breakdown of the audiobook version of this classic. And our material today argues that if you think this book is about a party, you've completely missed the point.
You've fallen for the trap, essentially.
Right. The trap that Fitzgerald said. Because the analysis we're diving into today, which, by the way, is a really deep narration-focused review, it starts with a bold assertion.
It really does.
It claims that The Great Gatsby is actually a haunting exploration of dreams, illusion, and identity. And honestly, haunting is not a word I usually associate with champagne towers.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because in high school, we read this as a social satire or, a romance.
Yeah.
But this review is pushing us to look at it through the lens of audio specifically. And that changes the whole texture of the story.
How so?
Well, the argument here is that listening to the story, rather than reading it on the page, it unlocks a layer of subtle emotions and quiet tragedy that is almost impossible to catch when you're just skimming text.
Okay, so our mission today isn't a book report. We aren't just recapping the plot.
No?
We're trying to figure out why the medium matters. Why does hearing this story spoken aloud change the meaning? But before we get to the how, let's set the stage. The source reminds us where we are.
The Roaring '20s.
The peak of the American dream.
Right. The stock market is defying gravity. Morals are getting looser. Skirts are getting shorter. It's this era of, endless possibility.
And right in the middle of all this chaos, you have Nick Carraway. He moves to Long Island, rents this little shack, and finds himself living next door to a castle owned by the mysterious Jay Gatsby.
And that dynamic, the quiet guy watching the loud spectacle, is the whole engine of the book.
And it's that dynamic that makes the audiobook so effective, according to this review.
Exactly. Let's look at the first major insight here about the audio experience itself. The reviewer describes listening to it as a confession whispered through time.
I have to stop you there because I love that phrase, a confession whispered through time. It sounds so intimate. But play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
Why does audio make it a confession? Why isn't reading the text intimate? You're holding the book. It's in your head.
Think about how we read, though, especially today. We skim.
True.
We rush to the dialogue. We want to know what happens next. But Fitzgerald, he doesn't write like a thriller novelist. His writing is lyrical. It's poetic. So the review points out that the smooth, reflective narration forces you to slow down. You can't skim an audiobook unless you hit 2x speed, which just ruins the vibe.
So the narration has this elegant pacing that mirrors the mood.
Precisely. So instead of rushing to see if Gatsby gets the girl, you're forced to just sit in the feeling of the scene.
And that brings out the emotional depth without exaggeration. That's a key line from our notes.
It is. It's not a radio drama with explosions and sound effects. It's subtle. When you read the book, you're an audience member watching a play from the back row.
But the audiobook.
The way this is described, it feels like Nick Carraway is sitting across a table from you, maybe with a drink in hand, finally telling you the secret he's been keeping for years.
That shifts the genre entirely. It stops being a novel and starts being a memory. And if we're treating this as a memory, then we have to talk about what's being remembered. The core theme. The big one.
The American dream.
Or the Great American Illusion.
Yes.
The review says the novel captures the spirit of the era, but exposes its emptiness underneath. Now, that is a harsh critique. Usually we're told the dream is about hope.
It is about hope, but hope for what? The analysis positions Gatsby not just as a character, but as a symbol.
Okay.
He is the embodiment of the belief that money, success, and reinvention will guarantee happiness. The equation is simple. If I work hard enough, if I make enough money, if I buy the biggest house,
I will be happy. I will win. It's actually kind of terrifying how modern that sounds. You scroll through TikTok or Instagram right now, and what do you see?
It's hustle culture. It's grind set.
It's rise and grind, exactly. Gatsby is basically the original grind set influencer. He's curating this perfect life, throwing these massive parties.
But he's doing it all for an audience of one. And that's where the trap is. The review nails this point perfectly. It says, chasing a dream without understanding its cost leads to emptiness.
Without understanding its cost. Oof, that hits hard.
It does, because we usually think of the cost as just hard work, right? Like, I worked hard, I paid the price. But for Gatsby, the cost isn't work.
What is it then?
The cost is his actual humanity. He becomes a shell. He has the mansion. He has the hydroplane. He has that famous scene with the silk shirts.
Oh, God, the shirts, where he's just throwing them all over the room.
Yes, and Daisy is sobbing into them.
I remember reading that in high school and just thinking, why is this woman crying over laundry? It seemed so silly.
Right. On the page, it can read as melodrama. But listening to the audiobook, the reviewer points out that you finally get it.
You do.
The narration makes it clear she isn't crying about shirts. She's crying because she sees the sheer, desperate effort Gatsby has put into becoming worthy of her.
And at the same time.
At the same time, the audio brings out this hollow echo in that big, empty house. It looks beautiful, but it feels vacant.
So the dream is visual. It looks like silk shirts and gold towers. But the feeling is hollow. That creates such a disconnect.
And that disconnect is where the tragedy lives. Which leads us directly to the motivation for all this, the romance, or what I thought was a romance.
Yeah, this is where the review threw me for a loop. It states, very boldly, that The Great Gatsby is not a love story.
Which is a bit of a shock to everyone who has had a Gatsby-themed wedding.
Exactly. I mean, he builds a castle for her. He stares at the green light at the end of her dock every single night. How is that not a love story?
Because it looks like love, but the analysis calls it a tragedy of misplaced hope. Ask yourself this. Does Gatsby love Daisy, the actual human woman?
Or does he love what she represents? The status.
It's even deeper than status. The review suggests a psychological insight here. Gatsby's love is about the past.
The past.
He is in love with the version of himself he was in 1917 when he first met her. He's in love with the moment before reality set in.
So Daisy's she's just a prop in his own movie.
In a way, yes. Daisy is flawed. She's careless. She's human. But Gatsby doesn't see that. He sees a goddess. The review has this killer line. Trying to relive the past destroys the present.
Trying to relive the past destroys the present. Wow. That's profound. And it's something we all do, right? Maybe not with mansions, but we look at old photos or we text an ex trying to get back to a feeling we had 5 years ago.
We try to curate the present to match a memory. And it never works.
Never.
And the audiobook apparently captures this fragile hope with heartbreaking clarity. You can hear the desperation in Gatsby's voice. On the page, he can seem confident, almost arrogant. Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can.
But when you hear it spoken...
You hear the crack in the voice. You hear a man who is terrified that if he stops smiling, the whole illusion will just shatter. He's running on a treadmill, sprinting towards something that is already behind him.
That is the tragedy of time. You can't buy your way out of it. And speaking of buying things, we have to talk about the social structure here, because Gatsby has all the money in the world, but he still can't get a seat at the cool kids table.
No. And the review makes a very sharp distinction here between old money and new money. This is central to the novel's conflict, and the audiobook really highlights the difference in tone.
So break it down for us. We have Tom and Daisy Buchanan representing old money.
Right.
And Gatsby is new money. What's the practical difference in the story?
It's about security versus effort. The key insight provided is, money can buy status, but not character or loyalty.
So Gatsby is performing wealth.
He's performing it, yes. Yeah. He throws these parties to show everyone he has arrived. But the Buchanans, they don't have to perform. They just are.
That sounds almost better for the Buchanans, but the description of them in the source is just brutal.
Oh, absolutely. Let's look at the cast of characters the review highlights. First, Tom Buchanan. He represents power, arrogance, and entitlement.
He's the guy who peaked in college football and has been bullying people ever since.
Exactly. He breaks things and people because he knows he can afford to fix them or just ignore the mess. He has no moral compass, just momentum.
And then there's Daisy. The review calls her charming but fragile and emotionally careless.
Emotionally careless. That is a devastating description. It implies she hurts people not because she's evil, but because she doesn't notice them enough to care.
She just retreats back into her money when things get difficult.
It's a protective bubble. And then there's Jordan Baker, who I always found kind of cool, honestly. But the review links her to detachment and moral ambiguity.
The observer who doesn't intervene.
She represents a world that has lost its center. And this brings us to the theme of moral decay. The review says that beneath all the glamour lies moral emptiness. And here is the equation that I think defines the whole book.
Okay.
When values disappear, excess fills the space.
Wow. When values disappear, excess fills the space.
So because they don't believe in anything, not in God, not in love, not in ethics, they just fill the hole with champagne and parties.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a spiritual vacuum. The narration, according to our source, subtly exposes the coldness behind the glamour. It's not a warm party, it's a desperate frenzy to avoid silence.
Because in the silence.
You have to think about who you are.
And the only person who actually seems to see this happening is Nick.
Our narrator.
The review calls him the moral anchor and the honest observer. But I have to ask, is he really that honest? I mean, he watches all this happen. He sets up the meeting between Gatsby and Daisy. He's kind of part of the problem, isn't he?
That is the great paradox of Nick Carraway. And the review points this out. It says, seeing clearly doesn't always mean acting bravely.
He's complicit.
He is. He sees the car wreck coming, but he doesn't grab the wheel. But he's also the only one who feels the weight of it afterwards. And this brings us back to why the audiobook gets such a high rating.
Because of Nick?
Nick's reflective voice makes him the perfect vessel for audio. The whole book is basically Nick talking to himself, trying to process the trauma.
It's a retrospective. He's looking back at the ruins.
Exactly. The tone isn't look at this party, it's look at what we lost. And the audio format allows for that reflective pacing, that sense of pausing to think, which the review says is ideal for classic literature beginners or for reflective listening.
You're in his head as he tries to make sense of the senseless.
You are.
So we've stripped away the party, we've stripped away the romance, we've exposed the American dream as hollow, and the money as a shield for moral emptiness. It's a lot darker than the movie poster suggests.
It is heavy, but that's why it endures. If it were just a party book, we would have forgotten it in 1930.
True.
We remember it because it tells the truth about the hangover.
So let's get to the verdict. The review wraps this up with a final assessment. How does it rate the experience?
It gives the audiobook a perfect 5 out of 5 stars. But the description is what sticks with me. It calls The Great Gatsby a quiet tragedy disguised as glamour.
A quiet tragedy disguised as glamour.
Yeah.
That sums it up perfectly. It's a shiny wrapper on a bomb.
And the final takeaway from the analysis is something we should all probably tape to our bathroom mirrors.
Lay it on us.
Not all dreams are worth chasing, especially when they are built on illusion.
That's the kicker, isn't it? We are raised on this diet of never give up on your dreams, chase your dreams.
Right.
But nobody tells you to audit the dream first. Nobody says, hey, check if that dream is actually real before you run off the cliff.
Or check if that dream is actually yours and not just something you've been sold by a magazine or a movie or an Instagram feed. Gatsby bought the dream wholesale, and he paid for it with his life.
You know, listening to us talk about this, it really makes me want to put the headphones on and give it a listen. It sounds like a completely different book than the one I skimmed in high school, just to pass the quiz.
I think that's the power of revisiting these narratives with a guide, like this review. It points out the signposts you missed. You realize that Fitzgerald wasn't celebrating the wealth.
He was warning us about it.
He was warning us that you can be surrounded by hundreds of people and still be completely, devastatingly alone.
And that money can build a castle, but it can't fill it with warmth.
Right. When values disappear, excess fills the space. That line is going to stick with me. We see that excess everywhere today. But the warmth, the loyalty, the character, that's much harder to come by.
Well, we have unpacked a lot today. We've gone from the party to the funeral, basically. But that is the true journey of The Great Gatsby. It starts with a bang and ends with a whisper.
A confession whispered through time.
Exactly. It's been great to dive into this with you. It really clarifies why this story still matters. It's not just a history lesson. It's a mirror.
A mirror that asks us some uncomfortable questions about what we value.
So to you, listening right now, we want to leave you with a thought. We've talked about Gatsby's illusion, the belief that the past can be repeated and that status equals happiness. The analysis calls the American dream beautiful but hollow.
So here's the question to take with you. If the American dream looks beautiful but feels hollow, what illusions are you currently chasing in your own life?
What is the thing you are sprinting toward, thinking it will fix everything, that might actually cost you everything? Are you chasing the green light, or are you living in the real world? Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Until next time.